Hello guys, and welcome back to another tutorial. So on today's video we are going to be doing the sewing part of this dress. If you missed the last one where I showed you how I drafted this dress, do well to check it out. I'll leave a link in the description box. Let's get right into the video. So here, these are my fabrics for the upper bodice. I went ahead to iron air stitch to the main fabric piece and gum stitch to the lining pieces. So these are what they are looking like right now. So now we're going to keep the other parts aside and take the center pieces, and now we're just going to cut the wording we need for our breast part area. So for the sides, I just placed the side fabric we have there, and I just traced it out on our wording, and I'm going to mark out 5.5 inches here, and for the length I went ahead to mark 6.5 inches. So I'm going to mark this and just curve out the wording I'm going to use for the sides. This will differ depending on the size of the person's bust you're working on. So I'm going to carve this out. I'm going to cut this out, and we're going to be cutting out 2 pieces of this. After cutting the wording, I went ahead to just sew them onto the fabric pieces, because these were the kinds that you could not iron them, so I had to sew them to hold on to the fabric very well while we sew. So I'm just going to hold the side piece and the center piece together, and I'm going to pin this down. When I'm done pinning this down, we are going to take this to the sewing machine to sew by 1/2 inch. So this is what it should look like when you're done. Your cup should be kicking like this. So if the cup is not kicking, please cross check your work. Now we're going to sew like this in this motion by 1/2 inch, and I'm going to come back to show you what it looks like. We're going to do the same thing for the other side as well. So when I was done, this is what our bustier is looking like. You can see how it is looking, and when I took the measurement, you can see that I have 7 inches, which is my nipple to nipple measurement. So now we are going to turn this to the wrong side, and I'm just going to create notches before I go ahead to iron. So for the back piece, we are just going to hold everything the way it is supposed to be, following our pattern, and we're going to sew by 1/2 inch to join our back pieces together. And we're also going to do the same thing for the lining pieces as well. So this is the modesty panel area. So we're going to be joining this as well, but before we do that, I went ahead to cut fabric strips to make our loop at the back for the modesty panel. So we're just going to fold it in like this to your desired length, and I'm going to be cutting out a bunch of these that we are going to use to stick onto the fabric. So I'm going to cut this out. After cutting them out, we're just going to use our pin to pin them down to secure them in place where we want them. And when we're done pinning everything down, we're just going to sew on them to secure it before adding our lining piece. This is what it looks like after I was done sewing on it. You can hardly see it sort of because of the fabric print, but this is what it looks like. So I'm going to place my lining piece on that, right sides facing each other, and we're just going to sew from this point all the way down, and then we're going to close up this part as well, and this part too, but you're going to leave a few inches open so you can turn this to the right side. So I'm going to take this to the machine and I'm going to sew them. I'm done sewing this. This is what it looks like. You can see that I left the opening here so I can turn this to the right side. So now I'm just going to flip this over to the right side. So this is what it looks like after I was done flipping it over to the other side. Now I'm going to give everything a good press. So after I was done ironing everything, this is what they are looking like. I'm going to keep them aside and we are going to work on the bustier. So I'm just going to turn this over. This is what it's looking like. I'm going to turn this over to the wrong side and I'm going to mark where I want my yoke to start from. So I started my measurement 1.5 inches away from the midpoint, and what I had there was 7 inches. So I'm going to bring in my fabric to cut out the yoke we are going to need. So what I took note of as well, because this is going to be on fold, because we are cutting the back and the front of our yoke together all at once on each side. So I took note of the 6.5 inches we took out while drafting our bustier. So we are going to add that together, and then we are going to add 1.5 inches allowance for ease, and we are going to be doing this on fold, as you can see, and then we are going to cut this out. So the length we are working with now is 14 inches while the width is 7 inches times 3, which is 21 inches. So we are just going to cut this out, and we're going to be cutting out 2 pieces of this, one for each side. Next, we are going to be folding the sides of the yoke, as you see me illustrating here. So we are going to be doing this on both sides for the 2 pieces, and then we are going to attach it to our bustier. So this is what it's looking like. I've went ahead to fold the sides for each of them. So I'm going to bring in our bustier right now, and from this point where I marked out, which is 1.5 inches away from the midpoint, we are going to start pleating in our yoke. So you're going to do this right sides facing each other, and we're just going to be pleating this. And as I'm pleating this, I'm going to pin it down so I can just take it to the machine and sew. So I'm going to pleat this all the way down to where we have our 7 inches mark we took note of before we cut out the yoke. So we are going to pleat this all the way to that point. When you're done pleating, you should have something like this. So this is what it's looking like after I was done pleating it. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to take this to the machine and sew on the pleats to secure them, and we're also going to go ahead to do the same thing for this other side. This is what we have when we were done adding the yoke to both sides. So now we're going to close up this part, and what we're going to do is we're going to flip this over like so. We're going to take in the remaining part of the yoke we have there, and then we're going to place our lining piece right sides facing each other to the main fabric piece, and we're going to sew by the sides and at the top to seal up everywhere. And then when we're done sewing, we are going to flip it to the other side and give this a good press. So we are going to do that now, and I'm going to come back to show you what it looks like. After adding the lining piece, this is what it looks like, and this is what it looks like on the inner part. So we are going to bring in our back piece and add this to the yoke. So I'm just bringing in the back piece, and you can see here that I made a mark to indicate my zipper allowance here, and from my zipper allowance I went in by 2 inches and I made a mark in there. That is going to be where we are going to be starting our yoke from, and we are going to take it 7 inches in, and you can see that I also made a mark at the point where we are going to stop. So next I'm going to place my fabrics right sides facing each other, as you can see. So we're going to work with this one first. we are going to start pleating on the back part. Make sure your fabric is facing the right side so you do not do it wrong and have to lose and start all over again. So I'm going to start pleating this, and I'm going to pleat and pin as I go. And when we're done doing this, we're going to do the same thing for the second piece. When we're done pleating the back piece, this is what it should look like. You should stop at where you have your 7 inches mark. So you should have something like this when you're done. So what we're going to do next is we're going to sew on the pleatings we have at the back to secure it the way we did for the front, and then we're going to move ahead to add our lining piece and close it all up. So we're going to sew this and then add our lining piece to it to just close it all up for the both sides. So guys, I went ahead to join the yoke to the back piece, and this is what it's looking like. So I want to show you guys something before joining the second part. What we had initially, our length is 16 inches, like I said earlier, divided by 2, that is 8 inches, and that would be too much for our initial shoulder, our yoke. So if we were to do the same thing for this part here, the measurement would be too much and your shoulder would not lap properly. So I went ahead to take out 1 inch and I slanted and I cut it out in a slanted motion, just to make sure that when we are done joining it to the back part, our shoulder is lapping properly. So you can see what it's looking like after I went ahead to cut this out. Here I actually cut out 2 inches, but I will advise you cut out 1 inch instead of 2 inches. So this is what it is looking like. So to make sure your shoulder is going to lap you properly and you are comfortable with your dress, make sure you slant by 1 inch. So after slanting this and joining that to the back piece, you should have something like this. Now we're going to place our lining piece right sides facing each other with the main fabric piece, and we are going to join this together for the 2 pieces we have at the back. After joining this, we are going to go ahead to flip this to the right side so we can give it a good press and attach the skirt part to the upper bodice. So guys, this is what our upper bodice is looking like. Now I'm going to bring in the skirt part and we are going to be joining this by 1/2 inch to the upper bodice. So I'm just going to place the upper bodice, laying it flat like so, and then I'm going to place my skirt part right sides facing each other, and we're going to join this by 1/2 inch and do the same thing for the back pieces as well. So this is what our dress is looking like so far. You can see that everything is nicely placed. So I also went ahead to fix my zipper at the back. As you can see, I already fixed the zip the way you would normally fix your zip, and I'm going to bring in our modesty panel for the back. So this is our modesty panel. We're just going to place them at our hip area, and I'm going to pin this down just to secure it in place. So when we're done pinning this down, we're just going to impute our body measurements and join the back and the front together. You can choose to sew down your modesty panels to secure it in place before joining your back and your front pieces together. Whichever way you are comfortable with is totally fine. So I'm just pinning this down and we're going to take this to the machine to sew. So you can either sew down your modesty panel to secure it before going ahead to add your body measurements and join everything together, but I'm just going to flip this over to the wrong side like so, and I'm going to add my body measurement and join everything together, and then I'll take out the pins. So we've come to the end of this video. This is what it looks like. If you enjoyed watching this video, do not forget to give it a like, subscribe if you're not subscribed already. And you can see that I went ahead to add pins here, press on pins, just to clip the front part together to get that result you saw earlier on at the beginning of the video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Bye guys.